Emily was thrilled to inherit her grandmother's old house. It was filled with memories, and she felt a strong connection to her past. As she began to settle in, she noticed a door at the end of the hallway that had been locked for years. Curiosity got the best of her, and she made it her mission to unlock the door and discover what lay behind it. Little did she know that opening that door would unleash a dark and terrifying secret that had been hidden for far too long. After days of searching, Emily finally found the key hidden in an old jewelry box. Heart racing with anticipation, she approached the door. As she inserted the key and turned it, a creaking sound echoed through the hallway, sending shivers down her spine. The door swung open slowly, revealing a dusty room filled with forgotten relics. Old photographs, broken furniture, and a thick layer of dust covered everything. But something felt off. An unsettling energy filled the air, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. As she explored the room, Emily found a diary buried beneath the floorboards. Flipping through its pages, she discovered chilling entries written by her grandmother, detailing strange occurrences in the house. Whispers in the night, shadows moving on their own, and an ominous presence that seemed to linger in the forgotten room. The more she read, the more uneasy she felt. It was as if her grandmother had known something dark resided in the house, a secret meant to be buried. Emily's heart raced as she realized she may have uncovered something she wasn't meant to find. That night, Emily settled into bed, but sleep eluded her. Strange whispers filled the air, echoing through the hallways. They were faint at first, like distant conversations just out of reach. She tried to dismiss it as her imagination running wild, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Get out," they seemed to warn. Panic gripped her as she realized the voice was coming from the forgotten room. The sense of dread was overwhelming, and she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind that door wanted her gone. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily returned to the forgotten room the next day. As she rummaged through the old belongings, she found an antique mirror, its surface clouded with dust. When she wiped it clean, she caught a glimpse of something moving behind her in the reflection. She spun around, but nothing was there. The air grew heavy with tension, and she could feel a cold breeze sweeping through the room. It was as if the house was alive, watching her every move. The whispers intensified, urging her to leave the room. That evening, Emily sought solace in her grandmother's old photo albums. She flipped through pictures, searching for comfort, but stumbled upon an unsettling image, a photograph of her grandmother standing in front of the locked door. The look on her face was one of terror, eyes wide with fear. The words, "Do not enter," were scrawled across the bottom in her grandmother's handwriting. Emily's heart sank. What had her grandmother experienced that made her warn future generations? She realized the weight of the legacy she had inherited, and the chilling connection between her and the forgotten room. Despite the warnings, Emily couldn't resist the urge to confront whatever was haunting her. She returned to the forgotten room, steeling herself for what lay ahead. As she stepped inside, the whispers reached a fever pitch, drowning out her thoughts. The air crackled with energy, and the temperature dropped. Shadows danced around her, and for the first time, she felt an unmistakable presence. "Leave now," a voice echoed, deep and resonant. Emily's heart raced as she struggled against the overwhelming fear, knowing she had to face the darkness that had been hidden for so long. In that moment of confrontation, Emily made a choice. She would not be ruled by fear. With newfound courage, she shouted, "I won't let you control me." The room trembled, and the whispers turned to screams, a cacophony of rage and despair. Emily felt a rush of energy as she reclaimed her space. The shadows receded, and the air grew still. She understood that the house held its secrets, but she was ready to face them. Leaving the room behind, she vowed to honor her grandmother's memory by bringing light back into the house and freeing it from its past. Jason had just moved into a new apartment, excited for a fresh start. He loved the quiet and solitude that came with living alone. However, on his first night, he received an unsettling phone call. The caller was silent, breathing heavily on the other end. He tried to brush it off as a prank, but as the calls continued, the fear crept in. What started as a minor annoyance soon escalated into a terrifying ordeal that would leave him questioning his decision to live alone. The first call came just after midnight. Jason was drifting off to sleep when the phone rang. He answered, expecting a friend, but was met with silence. "Hello?" he said, but there was only the sound of heavy breathing. A chill ran down his spine, but he dismissed it as a prank. He hung up and tried to shake off the feeling of unease. As he lay in bed, he couldn't help but feel that he was being watched. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of his nightmare. The next night, the phone rang again. This time, Jason felt a sense of dread wash over him. He hesitated, but answered. "Who is this?" he demanded. The caller let out a low, mocking laugh before hanging up. Jason's heart raced as he realized this wasn't just a prank. He could feel the weight of fear pressing down on him, and his mind raced with possibilities. Who was this person, and why were they targeting him? The feeling of being alone in his apartment became unbearable, as shadows seemed to loom larger around him. Jason decided to take action. He contacted the police, but without any evidence, they could only advise him to block unknown numbers. That night, he received another call. This time, the voice on the other end whispered his name. "Jason, I see you," it taunted. Panic surged through him as he glanced around the dark apartment. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the sense of vulnerability was overwhelming. He hurried to the window, peering out into the darkness, desperate to see if anyone was lurking nearby. Determined to find out who was tormenting him, Jason began to investigate. He combed through social media, looking for any clues about his caller. The more he searched, the more paranoid he became. Each rustle outside made him jump, and every passing car felt like a potential threat. He was consumed by fear, unable to focus on anything else. In his frantic search, he discovered that the previous tenant had mysteriously vanished without a trace. The realization sent chills down his spine. Was the caller somehow connected to the disappearance? Days turned into nights, and the calls persisted. One evening, Jason received a text message from an unknown number. "I know what you did." Confused and terrified, he felt like he was being drawn into a twisted game. Was someone stalking him? He reached out to a friend for support, but when he returned home, the atmosphere felt thick with tension. The shadows in the corners of his apartment seemed to move as he entered, and he could sense that something sinister was closing in around him. Feeling trapped, Jason decided to confront the situation. He waited for the next call, determined to unmask the person tormenting him. When the phone rang, he answered boldly. "Who are you?" The voice on the other end replied coldly. "You should have never moved here." A wave of fear washed over him as he demanded to know what the caller wanted. "You're next," was the chilling response before the line went dead. Jason's blood ran cold, realizing that he had unwittingly become part of a horrifying story that was far from over. That night, Jason made a decision. He packed a bag and fled his apartment, seeking refuge at a friend's house. As he drove away, he felt a mix of relief and lingering fear, but as he glanced in the rearview mirror, he saw a figure standing at the entrance of his apartment building, watching him leave. The feeling of being pursued would haunt him long after he left. Despite finding safety, the fear of that unknown caller remained, a reminder that some horrors lurk in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening, a time for relaxation after a long day. But for Sarah, things took a terrifying turn. Alone in her house, she settled down on the couch with a cup of tea. Little did she know, someone was watching her from the shadows outside. The silence of the night was soon broken by a series of unsettling noises that sent chills down her spine. As her heart raced, she realized she wasn't alone after all. At first, it was just a soft thud against the window. Sarah dismissed it as the wind playing tricks. But then came the unmistakable sound of a scratching noise, like nails dragging across glass. Fear gripped her, and she cautiously peered outside, her breath caught in her throat. The street was empty, yet the noises persisted, growing louder and more frantic. It was as if something, or someone, was trying to get in. The dread sank in as she contemplated what she should do next. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for her phone and dialed 911. The operator answered quickly, but just as she was about to explain her situation, the line went dead. Panic surged through her as she tried to redial, but the call wouldn't connect. Suddenly, the scratching stopped, replaced by eerie silence. It felt like a warning, an ominous sign that she was no longer safe. She took a deep breath and made her way to the front door, hoping to lock it securely before it was too late. Rushing to the front door, Sarah quickly turned the deadbolt, locking it tight, She checked the back door, ensuring it was secure as well. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, and she felt a sense of false security wash over her. But deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. The silence was deafening, and the fear of the unknown consumed her. Just as she returned to the living room, a loud bang echoed from the back of the house, shattering her moment of relief. Sarah's heart raced as she turned slowly towards the sound. A dark shadow darted past the hallway, almost too fast for her to comprehend. She froze, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it just her imagination? Or was there truly someone inside her home? Summoning every ounce of courage, she tiptoed towards the source of the noise, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. Each creak of the floorboards seemed to amplify her fear as she stepped closer to the ominous darkness that awaited her. As Sarah reached the end of the hallway, her heart pounded in her chest. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, and she gasped. It was a man, his eyes wild with desperation. "Please, help me," he cried. But his pleading voice sent her into a frenzy. She realized too late that he could be a threat. With a burst of adrenaline, Sarah bolted back towards the front door, determined to escape the nightmare unfolding in her own home. Reaching the front door, Sarah fumbled with the locks, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The man was closing in, and she could feel his breath on her neck. In a panic, she flung the door open and sprinted into the night, not looking back. The cold air hit her like a slap, but she didn't stop running until she reached her neighbor's house, pounding on the door for help. She had escaped, but the terror of what she had just faced lingered in her mind, haunting her every step. The police arrived soon after, but the intruder was nowhere to be found. Sarah was shaken but relieved to be safe. As she recounted her story to the officers, she learned that her neighborhood had seen a series of break-ins. The fear of being alone in her own home would stay with her forever. From that night on, she vowed never to take her safety for granted again, always ensuring her doors were locked and her windows secure. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting content.